What are we willing to face for love? This is the question that forms the central core of the book The Fault in Our Stars, published in 2012 by writer John Green, and then turned into a film 2 years later. Internationally renowned author John Green was born in Indianapolis in 1977 and then attended the Indian Springs School, Alabama. In 2000, he graduated from Kenyon College with a specialization in English and religious studies. After dropping out of college, Green spent 5 months working as a chaplain in a children's hospital before attending the University of Chicago Divinity School, which he will never attend. His work experience with children with deadly diseases later inspired him to write The Fault in Our Stars. He won the 2006 Prize Award for his first novel, Looking for Alaska, and achieved the first place on the New York Times bestseller list in January 2012 with his latest novel, The Fault in Our Stars. The main character in The Fault in Our Stars is the 16-year-old Hazel Grace Lancaster, who was diagnosed with lung cancer at the tender age of 12. Her life is completely characterized by being in and out of hospital. Locked up in her own little world, resigned to the cancer, Hazel tries to stay alive. She spends her days reading her favorite book, attending school, watching TV, being oppressed by her anxious parents, and attending group meetings in the basement of the Sacred Heart with other terminally ill patients, which only serve to depress her more as some of the group members gradually die. Thanks to an experimental treatment, however, Hazel's illness begins to recede. At one of the support group meetings, Hazel meets Augustus Waters, with whom she soon becomes close friends. Like her, Gus is a boy who was fought and beaten the cancer by exchanging his leg for it. The whole novel is focused around Hazel's favorite book, An Imperial Affliction by Peter Van Houten, an American author now retired in a state of depression in Amsterdam. Hazel's greatest wish is to meet him, ask him questions and get answers. Simple answers that will give her hope that after the inevitable, those who remain will go on living. And Augustus will make sure that these questions are answered at all costs. In fact, he gets in touch with the author. The author then invited the two guys to his home in Holland. Before the trip to Amsterdam, Hazel ends up in intensive care because of a cancerous liquid that fails her lungs, putting her departure for Amsterdam in doubt. Because of this event, Hazel decides to keep her distance from Augustus, inviting him to her home and explaining that when she dies, she wants as few people to suffer as possible, which is why them would be better off apart, with little result as Augustus is too emotionally attached to her. Once they arrive, however, they not only meet the writer, who turns out to be a disappointment for the guys, as he is a grumpy alcoholic, but they are also invited by his assistant to visit Anne Frank's house, where Hazel, encouraged by the recordings of Anne's voice, kisses Augustus. However, he reveals to Hazel that he has been diagnosed with a serious relapse from a recent PET scan. Back home, Augustus contacts her friends to stage a kind of pre-funeral. Augustus dies 8 days later. After the funeral, Hazel discovers that Augustus has provided several pages about her to the writer Peter Van Houten, Augustus had asked the writer to read these words as a eulogy at Hazel's funeral, because he, for obvious reasons, could not be present. For the title of the novel, The Fault in Our Stars, Green took inspiration from Act 1, Scene 2 of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, in which Cassius says to Brutus, "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are under lights." As with all the stories, there are differences and missing parts between the novel and the film. For example, in the book, Augustus' ex-girlfriend, Caroline Mathers, who died of brain cancer a few years earlier, has a strong influence on Hazel's ideas, while in the film there is no mention of Caroline or the impact of her departure on Gus. Then the film omits a very important scene, the one in which Hazel and Mrs. Lancaster hear Gus shouting to his mother before the two guys leave for their trip to Amsterdam. In the book, this conversation foretells the return of his cancer. In the novel, Hazel has a friend named Caitlin, who pushes her to overcome her boundaries regarding her relationship with Gus, while keeping her up to date on the latest trends in fashion. In the film, there is no trace of Caitlin. Another very important difference concerns Gus' letter. In the novel, Hazel looks everywhere for the letter that Gus has written to her. She searched all over the house and even the boy's computer, before his father reveals to her that there are some missing pages in Gus' notebook. After that, Hazel decides to email Peter Van Houten's assistant to find out if the pages have been sent to their favorite writer. It turns out that Gus sent what he wrote to Van Houten, and the assistant emails the attachment to Hazel so she can read it. In the film, however, the girl finds the pages in her car after Gus' funeral. A lot has been written about cancer recently, but little has been written with the sensitivity with which John Green tackles the subject. Using a very simple language, he succeeds in describing the disease through the eyes of the patient, without making it pathetic. On the contrary, he explores aspects that are often overlooked. Illness is not the protagonist in The Fault of Our Stars. It is an additional element in which love is the only true protagonist.